I never thought a friendship that lasted over a decade could fall apart because of one boy. But if you asked me to point out the exact moment when everything started to slip away, I'd say it was that sunny fall morning when we stepped onto the UCLA campus, hand in hand, eyes full of excitement, both of us thinking, this is it, college, together. My name is Emma Carter. I'm from Boston, majoring in communications, obsessed with photography, indie music, and black coffee, no sugar. And she was Zoe Bennett, my best friend since second grade. She knew all my secrets, from my very first crush to the time I cried after bombing a club interview in junior year. We weren't just close, we were inseparable, the kind of best friends people assumed were sisters. We used to say, there's nothing in this world that could come between us. But we were wrong, because he came along. And I didn't even realize until it was too late that the person I trusted the most was the first to let go when I started to fall. My name is Emma Carter, and I'm a freshman majoring in communications at UCLA. That first day on campus felt like something straight out of a movie. The air was crisp, the sky impossibly blue, and the leaves, red and gold, scattered across the sidewalks like confetti celebrating our arrival. Zoe Bennett and I stood at the front gates of UCLA holding hands like little kids. Our eyes were full of dreams. We had made it. We were both here. We had promised each other we'd go to the same school, partly because we both loved Los Angeles, but mostly because we couldn't imagine being apart. Zoe has always been the louder one between us, bright, outgoing, the kind of girl who makes everyone feel like they matter the moment they talk to her. My parents used to joke, Zoe's going to be class president, or maybe even president. And me? I was content behind the scenes, camera in hand, catching the real moments no one else noticed. Not the loudest in the room, but still part of the story. Our first few weeks at UCLA were all golden. Dorm tours, iced coffee runs, late-night snack raids, and endless Instagram posts tagged #CollegeLife. We roomed together, learned each other's weird habits, who needed the light on to sleep, who snored, who always had the best snacks. From the outside, we looked like sisters. From the inside, even closer than that. And I truly believed nothing could ever come between us. Until he showed up. It happened on a Wednesday afternoon. I was standing in line at the food court, waiting for my coffee, when Zoe suddenly rushed over, beaming, with a guy beside her. He was tall, had soft brown curls, and a smile straight out of a Netflix teen drama. "Emma, this is Nathan," Zoe said, practically glowing. "We met at orientation. He's majoring in computer science, and he plays guitar, too." Nathan extended his hand, and his eyes, deep greenish blue, met mine. I smiled, shook his hand politely, but I felt off. Something in my chest just tightened a little. I watched the way Zoe looked at him, the way she giggled at whatever dumb story he was telling, the way she leaned into him just slightly, like the rest of the room didn't exist. And I knew, even if I didn't want to admit it, something had just shifted. That night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, I tried to shake off the feeling. Maybe I was being sensitive. Maybe I was just tired. But deep down, I felt it. That tiny ache you get when you realize something precious is starting to slip through your fingers. And the worst part? You don't even know how to hold on tighter without breaking it. I don't remember exactly when it started to change, but I know it did. Zoe and I used to talk about everything: what we ate, who we had a crush on, our weird dreams, our worst fears. But slowly, it was like I was talking more and she was sharing less. And then came the nights. One night, around 2 a.m., I woke up to the soft chime of a text. Zoe's phone lit up on the nightstand between us. I squinted at the screen, not meaning to pry, but I saw it anyway. Wish you were here tonight. She smiled at her phone, quietly typed something back, then flipped it over and turned away. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. From that point on, Nathan started showing up more, sometimes for study sessions, sometimes just stopping by. I wasn't exactly invited, but I was there, sort of. Our late-night chats turned into Zoe texting under the covers. Our random snack runs turned into, sorry, I already ate with Nathan. And I started feeling like a guest in my own friendship. The weirdest part? Nathan was never rude. He was actually nice. He remembered what I liked to drink, asked how my classes were going. He was funny, soft-spoken, even a little shy sometimes. But that just made it worse, because the more I saw him, the more I noticed him, the more something in me began to shift, and I hated that. One Friday, Zoe had to go home for the weekend. Before she left, she said casually, "If Nathan drops by, just let him in, okay? He might want to borrow a book." Sure enough, Saturday evening, Nathan showed up. Hoodie, messy hair, 2 bubble teas in hand. "I figured you'd like matcha," he said with a grin, handing me one. We talked, at first about nothing, assignments, professors, music, but then it got deeper. He talked about feeling pressure to be the tech genius, even when he wasn't sure who he really was. I talked about always being the best friend, always being in someone else's shadow. At one point, we stopped talking. There was just silence. And in that silence, our eyes met. I looked away first. That night, lying in bed alone, I stared at the ceiling again. But this time, it wasn't because I was hurt by Zoe. It was because I was scared of what I was starting to feel for Nathan. I kept telling myself, if I don't act on it, it's not real. If I pretend it's nothing, it'll go away. But feelings don't just vanish. They linger, they grow in silence, and sometimes they explode. Zoe started to change, not just the usual "I'm in a relationship now" change, but a distance that felt calculated, like she was pulling away and not saying why. One night, she came back to the room late, hair still damp from a shower, hoodie too big to be hers. I didn't ask where she'd been. I didn't have to. She saw me watching, paused, then, like reading a script, she said, "You're being quiet lately." I almost laughed. Quiet? Me? "You've been kind of somewhere else," I said instead. She didn't respond, just turned off the light and slipped into bed. That night, we didn't say goodnight. We just let the silence win. Days passed. Zoe became colder, more distracted. Nathan stopped showing up. My chest felt like it was carrying too much air, not heavy, just tight and hard to breathe. Then one afternoon, I saw Zoe sitting alone on the steps outside our dorm. Her eyes were puffy. She didn't look up when I approached. "I know," she said before I even spoke. I froze. "Know what?" "That something's going on between you and Nathan." Her voice was small, cracked. I panicked. "Zoe, no, nothing happened, I swear." "You didn't have to kiss for something to happen," she said, finally looking at me. "I saw how you looked at him, and worse, how he looked at you." I couldn't deny it, and that silence between us, it wasn't empty. It was heavy, full of all the things we both felt but never said. "I never meant to hurt you," I whispered. "But you did," she replied. That night, she packed a bag and left. No drama, no yelling, just a single message she sent after. "You didn't choose him, but you didn't choose me either." And that shattered me. I sat on our empty dorm bed, the one she used to throw her jackets on, the one where we used to scroll through memes and plan our lives. It didn't feel like my room anymore. It felt like a memory I couldn't walk back into. Nathan messaged me that night. I didn't mean to come between you two. I didn't expect to feel this way." I didn't reply, because no matter what I felt, I had already lost the one person I thought I'd never lose. The room felt colder after Zoe left. Her side of the closet was empty. The wall where she pinned photos now looked bare, like something had been erased, but the outline still remained. I tried to stay busy, school, work, the usual distractions, but every time I passed by our favorite cafe or walked into class alone, something inside me twisted. I kept asking myself the same question. Was it worth it? And the worst part was, I didn't know the answer. One night, I sat on the old bench near Royce Hull, the one Zoe and I used to take selfies at during golden hour. I was scrolling through my camera roll when a familiar voice broke the silence. "Emma." I turned. It was Nathan. He looked hesitant, almost guilty, like someone stepping back into a house he knew he'd burned down. "I didn't think you'd still talk to me," he said softly. "I'm not sure I am," I replied. We sat in silence for a while. Then he finally spoke. "I didn't mean to ruin your friendship. I didn't plan any of this." I looked at him. "But you let it happen." Nathan exhaled, staring at the ground. "I guess I wanted to feel chosen, and I knew Zoe would pick me in a heartbeat, but with you, I had to earn it." Those words made my heart ache, not because they were romantic, but because they were selfish. Honest, but selfish. I stood up. "Nathan, I need time, space. I don't hate you, but I can't keep breaking pieces off myself just to hold this together." He nodded. "I get it." And just like that, I walked away. Back at the dorm, I received a text from Zoe. "I moved into my new room. Don't worry, no drama. I just need time too." I stared at her name on my screen for a long time. Then I typed, "I didn't choose him, but I didn't fight hard enough for you either. I'm sorry." I didn't know if she'd reply, but that night, for the first time in weeks, I fell asleep without crying. The next morning, I woke up to this. I don't know where we go from here, but maybe we don't need to go back. Maybe we find a new way to exist, apart, but okay. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was something like peace. Everything was quieter. No more shared playlists at 1 a.m., no more heated debates over which boba place was better, no more late-night laughter echoing off the dorm room walls. It was just me now. At first, I thought I'd hate the silence, but after a while, I started to make peace with it. I threw myself into everything I could. I joined a student writing group, I picked up extra shifts at the campus library, I said yes to study meetups with classmates I barely knew. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't someone's sidekick. I wasn't Zoe's best friend. I wasn't Nathan's maybe. I was just Emma. And slowly, that started to feel like enough. One day, I got an email from the communications department. "We'd like to invite you to be part of a student documentary series about navigating your first year of college. Your name was recommended." At first, I laughed. How ironic, being recognized for having a voice when I'd felt so voiceless just weeks ago. But I said yes. Not for the credit, not to prove anything, just because I had a story, and maybe someone out there needed to hear it. Filming the documentary was both healing and terrifying. I walked around campus with a camera crew and told them about the tree Zoe and I used to sit under, the table where Nathan and I shared matcha tea, the hallway I used to cry in after they were both gone. I didn't cry on camera, but I didn't sugarcoat it either. It wasn't about telling people how to survive college. It was just about telling the truth. A week before the film premiered for the campus community, I was sitting at our usual cafe, alone, rereading my script. And that's when I saw her. Zoe. She stood at the entrance, hesitated for a second, then walked over. Neither of us said anything right away. Then she smiled, tired but real. I heard about the documentary. I nodded. You thinking of watching it? She shrugged. I don't know. I don't want to see myself in it. I smiled back. You might, but you also might see me. We sat in silence again, but this time it wasn't awkward. It was safe. Emma, she said finally, I don't know if we'll ever be what we were. Me neither, I replied, but maybe we don't have to be. She nodded. Maybe we just keep growing and check in now and then. Like old friends, or grown-up ones. That night, I sat in my dorm alone, but I didn't feel lonely. I realized something important. Losing Zoe didn't mean I lost everything, because what I found somewhere along the way was myself. After the documentary screening, something inside me shifted. People I barely knew stopped me in the hallway to say, "Your story hit me," or "That felt real." But the moment that mattered most was afterward, when Zoe hugged me quietly and whispered, "You told it with honesty, not blame. I respect that." We weren't best friends again, but we were something new. Two people who had hurt each other and chose grace over resentment. That felt grown. I didn't expect love after that. I wasn't looking, but it found me anyway. His name was Lucas, a psychology major, a year ahead of me. We met during a workshop on nonviolent communication. He had a quiet confidence, the kind that didn't try to impress, but did anyway. After the session, we ended up talking on the steps outside. "You spoke like someone who's lived it," he said. "Yeah," I laughed. "Too much of it." "I could tell, but you didn't sound bitter. That's rare." I looked at him, surprised and curious. We started hanging out, study breaks, long walks around campus, grabbing sandwiches from the food truck that always ran out of sauce. With Lucas, there were no mind games. He didn't make me feel small or unsure. He never made me guess what he meant. One night, under the string lights near the quad, he said, "Sometimes the person who makes your heart race isn't the one who makes it feel safe. I hope I'm the second kind." He was. I let myself fall, slowly, not in a dizzy, all-consuming way, but with both feet on the ground. For the first time, I wanted to be seen, not as someone's secret, not as a backup plan, not as a regret. And with Lucas, I was. Until one night at our favorite little taco place near Hillgard Avenue, Nathan walked in. Yeah, him. He froze when he saw us. Lucas gave a polite nod. I felt my stomach twist. Nathan approached. "Emma, wow, it's been a while." I forced a smile. "Yeah, it has." "I didn't mean to interrupt. I just didn't expect to see you here." Lucas stayed silent, but gently slid his hand over mine under the table. I was grateful. Nathan looked at me, eyes softer than I remembered. I wanted to say sorry, again, for everything. I don't know if it means anything now, but I hope you're happy. I looked him in the eyes. For the first time, there was no pain, just distance, growth. "I am," I said. "Really." He nodded. "Good, you deserve it." And then, he left. On the walk back, Lucas didn't say much, until we reached my building. "That was him, right?" I nodded. "Do you still—" "No," I cut in. "He was a lesson. But you're a choice." Lucas smiled. "Good, because I choose you too." And that night, for the first time in a long time, I let go of everything that had once held me back. A few days after we saw Nathan again, I noticed something different in Lucas. Not cold, not jealous, just distant. Like he was holding back something he wasn't sure I wanted to know. That night, I asked, "Is everything okay?" Lucas hesitated, then set down his coffee. There's something I've never told you about Nathan. He pulled out a small notebook from his backpack. Inside were clippings, notes, and printed screenshots, faces of girls, names I didn't recognize. "These are students I worked with when I volunteered for peer support last year," he said. I flipped through the pages. Every story had a common thread: Nathan. He didn't hurt them physically, but he left them wrecked, Lucas said quietly. Same pattern every time. He'd show interest, get close, make them feel special. Then, the moment they got attached, he'd back off, or worse, move on to someone else, usually someone they knew. I stared at the pages. Some of the girls even looked like me. "And nobody did anything?" I asked. Lucas looked tired. Some tried, but he never broke rules, just hearts. I leaned back in my chair, a knot tightening in my stomach. All this time, I thought what happened between me, Zoe, and Nathan was an isolated mess, a painful mistake. But it wasn't. It was part of a pattern, and we were just two names in a longer list. Lucas reached across the table, gently touching my hand. "I'm not telling you this to make you feel worse," he said. "I'm telling you because I care, and because you deserve the whole truth, even if it's ugly." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. "I feel so stupid." "Don't," he said. "You saw the good in someone who didn't deserve it. That doesn't make you weak, it makes you human." That night, I messaged Zoe. I found out something about Nathan. Turns out, we weren't the first, or the last. She replied almost instantly. "I know, I figured it out too. I just didn't want to be the one to tell you." We met up the next day, not to vent, not to cry, just to sit and let the truth breathe between us. "I guess we were both caught in something bigger than us," I said. Zoe sighed. "Yeah, a game neither of us knew we were playing." We didn't need to say much more. Sometimes clarity doesn't come with a breakdown. Sometimes it just settles in. Later that night, Lucas walked me back to my dorm. He didn't ask what Zoe and I talked about. He didn't need to. Instead, he handed me a folded page from his notebook. This was a quote one of the girls wrote to herself after everything. "You don't have to burn down your past to rise from it. You just have to stop living in the ashes." I looked up at him. "Thank you for being real." He smiled. "Always." And I believed him. Sophomore year began with less noise, fewer people, but more clarity than I'd ever had. I wasn't defined by anyone anymore. Not by Zoe, not by Nathan, not even by the girl I used to be. I was just Emma. And for the first time, that felt powerful. One day, I got an email from Student Affairs. They had seen my documentary and invited me to help lead a summer orientation program for incoming freshmen. They wanted me to tell my story, not because it was perfect, but because it was real. I stared at the screen for a long time. I had also received an offer from a media company in New York. It was everything I'd once dreamed of. But this time, I paused. Because sometimes growth means choosing presence over prestige. I said yes to the summer program. For 3 months, I listened to story after story from new students, girls who had just left home, who felt small, unsure, full of hope and fear. And I told them mine. I didn't talk about heartbreak like a cautionary tale. I talked about friendship, identity, shame, forgiveness, and strength. And how sometimes your biggest mistakes become your greatest teachers, if you're willing to learn. On the last night of the program, I sat under the lights of our campus amphitheater. It was quiet, the air warm, soft. Zoe texted, "Proud of you for using pain and making something out of it." I smiled. Lucas showed up a few minutes later carrying 2 iced teas. He handed me one and said, "It's wild how far you've come." I looked out across the empty lawn. "Yeah, and I think I'm only just getting started." He nudged my shoulder. "You know, people are going to remember you for this." I shook my head. I don't need to be remembered. I just need to make sure the next girl walking into this place doesn't feel as alone as I did. And if you're that girl, maybe you're standing at the gates of college right now with big dreams and a shaky heart. Let me tell you something. You don't have to be the prettiest, the smartest, the strongest, or the loudest. You just have to be honest with yourself. Know when to walk away. Know when to speak up. Know when someone isn't good for you, even if they make your heart skip. Protect your peace, value your voice, and never, ever sacrifice your worth just to be chosen by someone else. Thank you for being here. If this story touched you, please hit like, subscribe, and share this with another girl who might need to hear it too. We're all figuring it out, and none of us should have to do it alone. See you in the next story. Emma.